morning and welcome back. Now, this time of year is a period of festivities all over the world, a time that most of us dig deep and spend on gifts and leisure. Now, come the new year, though, a lot of us are left with a headache of massive debt, and worse still, we could find ourselves in such deep financial trouble that we get blacklisted. But what does this mean, and what are the consequences? Is there anything that we can do once our names are on these credit bureaus? Well, to help answer these questions, I'm now joined by lawyer and legal rights expert Nicky Campbell. Nicky, thanks for joining us on the program. Welcome.
You're welcome.
All right, tell us a little bit about what does it mean to be blacklisted and how does that happen?
Okay, basically, blacklisting is a colloquial term used to refer to negative listing that's placed on one's credit record. Negative in the sense that you've probably missed payments on old accounts or on current accounts. It could also be accounts that you've paid up and the listing remains at the credit bureau. So it's always best to actually check.
Why the need for these lists?
Well, basically, the lists are used as an indicator, or should I rather say a predictor, of future performance.
Okay.
In the future, are you likely to repay and honor your debt obligations? Right. So credit providers will check these lists at the credit bureaus in order to check how you've performed in the past.
Okay, so that's your blacklisting, but there are other negative things that can happen to you, things like judgments and so on and so forth.
Yes, but judgments typically will also be incorporated in the credit report.
Right.
So you'll have judgments, you'll have default listings, you'll have notice listings. It's just a different type of blacklisting, as it were.
All right, so initially you'll get listed for being late with your payments and so on and so forth. If you become more and more problematic, then they start to go down the legal route.
They could very well do so, yes.
And what are those legal things? What is a judgment, you said?
Well, a judgment basically is it can be taken for any amount of debt that's owed, so the creditor is not influenced by how much is outstanding. Typically, what will make a credit provider take a judgment is to secure the debt, because once a judgment is taken, the debt is valid in law or legally enforceable for a period of 30 years. It will remain on your credit record for 5 years and then automatically be removed, but for 30 years, the judgment creditor can execute in terms of that judgment.
Okay, so I'm blacklisted. What do I do?
If you're blacklisted, what I would advise you to do is to check your credit records with all 3 credit bureaus. Reason being, the information that's held, say, with ITC could very well differ with Experian. So the 3 credit bureaus to take into account are ITC, Experian, and XDS. So check your reports. It's free once a year in terms of the National Credit Act, and check what is listed against you.
So what do you do? Just phone them and say, this is my ID number?
Phone them, give them your ID number, send a copy of your ID, and you usually have your report within 24 hours. And if there's any information that's on the report that you dispute or challenge, you must always remember that in terms of the National Credit Act, as a consumer, you have a right to lodge a dispute with the credit bureaus. And the credit bureaus then have 20 business days to investigate the basis of the dispute.
Okay. So how do you get off this listing? Because obviously you don't want to be on a blacklist.
Well, what I would suggest, first get the reports, check exactly what's listed against you, what type of listing. That's what I often ask my clients. What exactly is listed against you? Is it a judgment? Is it a default? Is it an adverse listing? Because the course of action you're going to follow will differ. If it's a judgment, you're probably going to need an attorney to assist you. Because an application to have the judgment rescinded or set aside will have to be made to court.
And what about situations where you end up in administration? That's another thing that I've heard that
Yes, administration is a very contentious issue. I mean, the NCA actually came about to actually try to eradicate that's right, to try and eradicate administration, because what you'd find is that consumers were going under administration and seemingly never coming out of administration. So constantly repaying their debts via an administrator. And this notice remains on your credit record for 10 years.
My goodness. All right, so, but you know, it's not a lost cause. There are things that you can do.
No, there are legal remedies. Often you can remedy it yourself, but you may need the intervention of an attorney to assist you. But the National Credit Act has tried to make it easier for consumers to actually help themselves in respect of their credit records.
Right. The Consumer Protection Act is something that you speak about often. I think you've even written a book about credit. What's the big issue there for you?
Well, for me, and it's kept me busy ever since the Consumer Protection Act became law, it would be the issues surrounding fixed-term agreements.
Right.
Because in terms of the CPA, the Consumer Protection Act, you can now cancel a fixed-term agreement by merely giving 20 business days notice at any time.
So what are we talking about? Cell phone accounts?
Cell phone industries, gym contracts, any agreement that provides in excess, say, of a month's service to a consumer.
Right. Okay, so bottom line, we've got to guard and protect our credit records. That's a message you should be giving people.
That's right. I mean, that's your credit reputation at the end of the day.
Right. Nikki, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us. So there you have it. Your credit record really has, it's almost like a book of life in the end, so guard it carefully.